And Kyle, thank you again for joining us.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for inviting me, and it's nice being here. Wish I could be there in person, but it looks like I'm not the only one joining online. So, um, hope this can be, entertaining or edifying for some of you fellow photographers. Like Sam said, I do have quite a few photos that I pulled into this to kind of give a breadth of work that I've been taking over the past 15 years or so. So if I skip over a photo a little bit too quickly and you wanted to maybe ask a question about it, um, try to see if you can stop me a little bit harder when I'm on the screen. But I'm happy to go in depth a little bit more about any of them. So. Uh, yeah, with that in mind, we can start off just a little bit about me. Um, I'm a user experience designer. Got my bachelor in fine arts for graphic design from KU. And I've done quite a bit of traveling, not as much as my brother has, but still really relish the opportunity when I get one. I really focus on street and travel photography, though, as Sean and I were just discussing, I enjoy nature landscape photography as well. Here's kind of one behind me here out in Western Kansas. And then I also did van life full time for 7 years. And so that was a different type of opportunity to travel, a little bit different from the kind of the international, intercontinental traveling and getting a little bit closer to nature too. So I've been all over quite a bit. So just wanted to share some of that and kind of why I do it and some of the photography that I enjoy. So about why I take photos. I am an introvert, which has always been very kind of uh, contradictory to some ways with my enjoyment of street photography, which is really about travel, taking photos of strangers, right, in public places, and the kind of candid nature of it. But I really enjoy people and cultures. I find the fascinating when I get to know a new place and try to understand it from the perspective of the people that live there. So my work focuses on those unplanned and unposed moments in public spaces. And I thrive in finding those moments of beauty and joy in the chaotic and messy world. Um, Here's a list of some of the or all of the countries that I've been to. I don't have photos to share from all of them. Um, when I went to Russia, it was I was young and before I was kind of really into photography. Um, but a lot of fun travels and memories there. So I'm going to start out in Southeast Asia. Thailand was really the first trip that I went to where I was doing kind of travel street photography internationally, and I think it was a rather uh, good option for a first travel experience. Bangkok, Thailand is very tourist friendly, and there's a lot of friendly people there, and it was really easy to be comfortable walking the streets and feeling safe and exploring that culture. The experience of trying to kind of like identify some of those aspects of some of these cultures that are, unique. Monks in orange robes, being a key one for Thailand, obviously. Um, is kind of one of the challenges of doing travel photography, right? Finding images that couldn't necessarily be taken anywhere else. Jumping ahead in time here a little bit, this is 8 years later in Cambodia. And this is one of the floating villages that are kind of built on these stilts to uh, compensate for the immense rainfall and river levels increasing by 10, 20 feet or so. This photo was taken from a moving boat driving down the Tonle Sap River. This is a school, a classroom. underneath one of those floating village homes. And I think this is where that um, attempt at sort of with street and travel photography, trying to find that combination of the documenting the everyday and still trying to find a way to enhance it or elevate it and find that beauty there. Going back across the Pacific here to Mexico. Most of the photos here were taken in Merida in the Yucatan Peninsula. And these are the kinds of moments again to try to find a little bit of the character of that place, and really identify kind of with the humanity too, right? Not just landmarks or tourist spots, but the everyday life. What is the bustle and hustle of the everyday people? What are their faces? What makes this area particularly unique? So keeping it within this hemisphere here, Peru and Bolivia were a joint trip that I took um, with my brother, who was doing I'll say a lot of these trips that I go on are not necessarily initiated by myself. Lucky enough to have friends and family that want to go on a trip, and I'm blessed enough to be invited along. And he was on a 6 month backpacking trip from Central to South America. And I met him in Cusco in Peru so that we could go visit Machu Picchu together. And you can see here, I experiment sometimes certain images, certain places. I really feel drawn to black and white. Sometimes it's uh, kind of more of the vibrant color. Um, But what's really fun, about any of this travel stuff is experiencing the unexpected, right? With street photography, you are not really planning much of anything, right? Walking around, finding interesting scenes and just seeing what unfolds in front of you. So at Aguascalientes at the foot of Machu Picchu, this was a rainstorm came through right as the kids were getting out of school and just kind of playing around together in the rain. And that's not something I really could have planned if I had wanted to. Um, Tried to stay on the ground and take the buses through Peru and Brazil, or sorry, Peru and Bolivia, going to through Copacabana. This is Palm Sunday, and even as similar and neighbor as Peru and uh, Bolivia are, when you get to Bolivia, you start seeing kind of those distinctive bits of fashion. The women are traditionally dressed in these uh, multi-layered skirts and these hats, and it's really a dead giveaway about Peruvian life or Bolivian life. Boy, I'll get it straight. This here is one of my favorite images. I love the outline, sort of the halo around the head of this woman. Um, she wasn't particularly keen on getting her photo taken after I took it, but I had to keep it anyway. I just found it so too beautiful to let go. Which is one of those interesting things about photographing in public, right? There is a kind of a give and take, and sometimes even people getting a feeling of exploitation to a degree. And that's something that I constantly am dealing with when it comes to my own photography. And I have kind of debated with myself many times, but I really try to embrace the philosophy of the classic photographers of the importance to a degree, not to make myself too self-important, but of documenting the world that we're in a way that's not about the big events or the newsworthy events or the media or the spectacle. Um, but this every day that we live in right now only exists for this moment, and it will be gone to history at some point. And I think capturing the bits of everyday life that for people who aren't celebrities or politicians or whatever is an essential part of the history of photography. A few more in Peru. And now we're switching continents again, going to Africa. So this was another trip that was planned by my brother. Thank him once again. Uh, we took a trip focusing on visiting gorillas in Rwanda. This is one of those kind of once in a lifetime opportunities that I didn't want to miss out on. This is one of my favorite photographs in the jungles of Rwanda, Volcanoes National Forest. Um, but of course, it's not just about that destination. As I mentioned previously, it's those unplanned moments that you just happen to run into on the way if you're just curious and walking and trying to look and find something that you didn't plan. This day was pretty special. I felt this was the day before we left Kigali, the capital of Rwanda, to travel up to the mountains to see the gorillas, and we were staying at a hostel. And the hostel was kind of a combo hostel, nightclub, bowling alley, and swimming pool, depending on the time of the day and the day of the week. This was Christmas Eve, and on Sunday, the pool is leased out to the nearby church for them to perform baptisms. And we were just kind of hanging around outside and heard singing. And so I went down and had my camera in hand, and I approached the people that were there, not presuming that we were going to be able to communicate verbally, but just tried to be pleasant and held up my camera inquisitively and to get permission. And they just shuffled me in and gave me free reign. Um, and being able to kind of get close and to participate into it in an experience like that to whatever degree and document it was something that I found incredibly rewarding uh, with such friendly and beautiful people that I was able to have those brief interactions with. So the next day we made our way up to the forest. Um, a lot different weather and atmosphere, and part of the trek was a trek through this village on the edge of the national forest. And these kids came out and something they see every day, I'm sure, but still seemed very excited and danced and sang songs as we came through. And this is the landscape of the contrast of the tourists that are coming to pay to be there, and then the everyday conditions for the locals. All right, I'm jumping around country to country. We're going now to sort of the between Europe and Asia, to Turkey. Turkey is a place that I had wanted to visit for a very long time. It's one of my favorite countries. It lives at this intersection of the East and the West, different religions, Islam, Christianity, very ancient, but also very, very new and modern. And it's full of juxtaposition and things that I just wasn't expecting when I arrived there. The kind of cosmopolitan nature of it, um, and you kind of go on one hand from this sort of boldly dressed person here, and then of course there's a lot of people in very traditional conservative dress, but also with modern technology. So going around the corner in Turkey, in Istanbul specifically, There's a lot of scenes that are just incredibly unique.
Are these all from Istanbul?
Yes, up until we get to the beach photos. These are all the same. This one I just love. These two look like they're just right out of a sitcom. Yeah, like kind of the short old cranky guy and the young new guy. He always messes up. It's kind of the storytelling that you can kind of bring to these, which is to me one of the most successful parts of any photography is that if you can read a story or bring your own kind of story and imagination to the photographs. You see this fella here, he's got mismatched shoes. So, and then we did travel to the coast of the Mediterranean here. And I don't have the photos of it, but you had, a lot of, again, conservatively religious folks dressed up, head to toe covered, going to the beach in their swimwear. And then you also had European tourists wearing almost nothing at all. Back across the ocean to Brazil. So Brazil was a special treat for me for some friends of mine who were touring musicians and invited me to come along to some performances they were doing in Sao Paulo and Rio. And it was gave me the opportunity to then see some of the parts of Brazil that I wouldn't have seen otherwise. So there's the normal stuff, out on the beach, walking the streets, um, in downtown, the hot uh, heat in the weather and how people deal with that. But then getting to go kind of explore a little bit more of the nightlife, where it's cool and in more than one sense. And then of course there's always the street food. I mean, that's other than photography, that's kind of the main reason to go travel around the world, right? And speaking of food, gonna hit up India next. I have probably more photos of India than I have any other location. It's a country that I visited 3 times now and hope to continue to go back. It's one of my favorite places in the world to visit. I've been to many of the states, Karnataka, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu, Himachal Pradesh, Punjab, Haryana. Um, it's one of my favorite cuisines. And I know a lot of Indians through working in software, which I'm sure is true for a lot of people working in different industries. But and that's how I've been able to have some of those opportunities of coworkers who became friends and invited me to come visit. Um, it's a photographer's dream in many ways, right? You have such vibrant street life. You have festivals, music. It's full of sights and sounds. When I went on my first trip, it was during the Ganesh Chaturthi festival, which is a celebration of the elephant god Ganesha, and lasts for about a week. And I was there for through most of the trip, so I got to see how different areas were celebrating that, the different offerings they do, the way they decorate and sing and dance and on the streets. My most recent video visit was the only trip that I've done with a photo workshop, and it ended up being kind of a one-on-one workshop as the other participants backed out at the last minute. So it was just me and my guide and driver. So it became a much more kind of an intimate and a little bit more free-flowing experience of just being able to kind of go where we wanted and photograph what we wanted. Um, it's another one of those places, I think, like Turkey, that has that fascinating confluence of religions, ancient uh, architecture and religion, but modernity as well. And with India too, I think the encroachment of nature, you know, monkeys and cows and street dogs and things like that. Um, Beautiful architecture and colors, right? Um, this is like, could you imagine just a more beautiful kind of like spectrum of color in just everyday wear of people coming across in the street, right? It's hard to stage something like that.
So is that on purpose? Or is that an accident with the scarf on her face?
That was an accident. Caught it right at the right moment. Was able to travel to also, I think one of the advantages of having a guide who can set up some opportunities. This was a crafting village outside of Jodhpur where they made textiles and ceramics in a traditional way. The folks in Rajasthan as well are known for the turbans and the elaborate mustaches. They have mustache competitions as well. This guy's, I think, a good candidate. And there's also these wonderful ancient forts uh, all over. Architecture, is just fascinating. And then, there's folks there that are just paid to keep the thing clean, with just thousands upon thousands that come through every single day. I also took the opportunity, however potentially misguided, of taking the train in India. I think there's kind of a romantic idea of the train system in India, kind of a initial introduction by British colonialism. Um, and I can't say, second class was the most comfortable way to travel at night. But the train station was also a fascinating place to photograph during golden hour, and then the arrival at the final destination. Another, part about to India is just kind of the constant reminder of religion in the place, right? So a lot of Hindu temples, obviously, very large Muslim population, but it's really interwoven into kind of daily routine in many ways. This particular trip was around Diwali, the Festival of Lights. It was in November 2023, and this was in Pushkar, and they have a small lake at the center of town. And at night, um, every night they'll have a small religious ceremony offering milk and water and blessings, which is uh, yeah, just a really fun thing to watch and learn about and experience firsthand. And then these next two were ones that I wanted to mention simply because when you are traveling with other people, um, in my case, I'm usually the only one who's incredibly passionate about photography, which gives me a little bit different approach to how I want to travel. So one is time of day. I want to get going when the light is good, so I don't want to sleep in and miss that morning light. And Another one is just stopping and finding things that would be interesting to photograph, even if they're not, again, kind of the end destination, right? It's the travel getting there. So I was traveling with a friend and his family, and we had been moving around here and there, and all of the plans were being made in Canada, and I couldn't understand, and I was just basically was like, "Hey, get in the car, we're going somewhere." And I got in the car and we went somewhere. And uh, we were traveling to Hyderabad from Bangalore, and it's a long drive. I think something like 6 hours or so. Um, but as we were going, and I had felt like, boy, I just been in the car a lot. I hadn't seen a lot of hadn't taken a lot of photos, and then saw these women off the side of the road doing farm work, and I was like, hey, can we stop here? I want to take some photos. We hopped out, and uh, my travel companions, tried to communicate a little bit about what this odd white guy was doing. Um, Walking towards them, and they were farming these small watermelons, and uh, were very happy to let me take their photo, and um, were grateful for doing so. I think they were confused, but also uh, you know pleased in some way that someone found what they were doing interesting. And they ended up gifting me like six of these watermelons that I had to try to stuff in my pockets and and stop them. It was a really lovely experience. And then later on another day, same thing. The sun was starting to set, and saw these another group of women, and they were planting rice in a paddy. And so I shimmied down the embankment and took off my shoes to not get them muddy and stuck, but it was this rocky wet soil that I was trying to tromp through to get a little bit closer. And they were just amused as hell by me. Like, what is this guy doing? Um, but it was worth it, capturing the smiles on their faces. I'll happily make a fool out of myself if it gets me a good photo. I think this is in Delhi. Another unplanned moment, walking through the markets of Delhi at night, and seeing just kind of an open doorway and going, "Hey, what's over here?" Poking your head in, and it's a group of fellows preparing food for the market, um, and they were fine. I was able to get a shot, and then I guess the boss man kind of came over and was like, "No, no, no, please leave. Like, you're not supposed to be in here." But I had already gotten the shot, and it was one of those that had I think a unique lighting to it that felt almost stage-like, that I really enjoy. This is Jodhpur in Rajasthan, and if anybody is at all familiar with some of the photography in India by Steve McCurry, he's made some very famous photos there where there's a lot of blue walls um, in the city. And that was something that I had just always wanted to visit when I had first seen those photos, and was very excited. I think I would have um, skipped all the rest of the trip if I could just get some photos in Jodhpur. So this was kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity that I just had to jump at. Another advantage of traveling with somebody who knows the culture and knows the language. My guide was also a good people person and an extrovert. We were walking down the road, taking some photos, and just asked this guy if, hey, can we come in? He was like, oh yeah, come on. And so we got to come in and go on his rooftop and get a very unique view of this section of the city. Auto rickshaws being the most common form of transportation. So definitely several photos of that. A barber shop and a shipping container. And this is why like so many of these experiences in countries, I think probably more closer to the equator where they have warmer climates, and it helps so much of their daily life and their activity to be on the street, right? So people's business dealings and their religious ceremonies and entertainment is just kind of out there in the public. It's not so much of it is not behind closed doors, and it's this vibrant and bustling kind of experience, and you never know what's going to be around you. And I think for India in particular, it's something that requires an extra bit of focus too, because there's so much going on. There's smells and sounds and colors and textures and the flavors of the food, right? But when you're on the street, it can be a little overwhelming, and you have to kind of focus to find something that you can isolate into a composition. Um, so I have a brief 3-minute photo, or 3-minute video, excuse me. Um, hopefully some of the audio comes through, but there's no dialogue. It's just to kind of get the sense of things. And so through some of my travel recently, I've been bringing along a little GoPro that I'll attach to the camera or wear around my neck, just to get a little bit of the first person view, and you can kind of see, you know, if it's worth anything, my approach of how I'm shooting. It's not perfect, of course, because especially when I'm wearing it on myself, um, I will, rotate over here to take a picture, but the camera's going that way, so you won't always see like the one-on-one of the image. But hopefully it gives you just a little bit of more of the experience of the sensory experience of what it's like being in India. And so this is of a central market in Jodhpur near the Blue City.
Stop motion, kind of stop motion thing. I feel like there's a setting to make it better, but I can't ever find it in the moment.
Oh, it's working.
Bye bye.
All right. So you see, so much is going on all the time, and just as I was watching this, I was thinking about how much that I think I work remotely, right? As I mentioned before, I work in software, so a lot of the interactions that I have with people on a regular basis is through a screen, and I think it really becomes that much more of a contrast, and why I really embrace those opportunities to get out and travel in these different areas. Um, so I can be amongst and feel the energy of being around people, and it's such a contrast from my average day sitting in the same room looking at a screen. You know? So next section wanted to get in was about more kind of street photography in the US. Um, and part of this was made possible by my decision to do van life starting back in 2018. Um, so if anybody isn't familiar, there's a lot of folks that get some of these Sprinter vans or Transits or Volkswagens and build out the interior, which is what I did. You know, put a little electrical system on there, some solar panels, uh, a refrigerator, right, cooktop, diesel heater, and made that my home for 7 years. I put about 170,000 miles on my van in that time, crisscrossed the country a lot. And while a lot of my photography in that sense was focused more on nature as I was camping in, you know, BLM land or national park, national forest for free. I still got out to the cities as well as I traveled through and met people and found new ways to experience the U.S. So fortunately, there wasn't too much of my experience that was like this of getting stuck in the mud, but fortunately, there's usually someone around to help pull you out. This was at Slab City in California, which is a very interesting place of kind of nomads to camp out and make a home for themselves. But just like traveling internationally, festivals and fairs and celebrations are where it's at, carnivals. This is Frontier Days in Cheyenne, Wyoming. A couple here are from Taos, the Taos Rodeo. This again was one that I wasn't planning on finding. I was in Taos looking around at some different properties for a friend, and I just saw a sign saying, "Hey, the rodeo's this weekend." So found my way over there and really lucked out with the beautiful clouds to add some to drama to the background. And see, it's kind of like a little small town uh, rodeo. And since then, I've kind of gone around and I've hunted down some rodeos as far as kind of an American or at least North American kind of tradition. I think they're really interesting as kind of a subset of American culture. Made it up to the Iowa State Fair. But again, I've been to cities as well. This is in San Francisco. Um, and I'll say now it's not always driving. And I didn't want to camp and park in San Francisco, so I've flown to San Francisco, but I did park in New York, which was an interesting ex and camp in New York, which is an interesting experience of itself. Finally got to an experience that I've wanted to see for a long time, a couple of years back, going to the International Balloon Fiesta in Albuquerque, um, which can be cold and you have to get up really early. but it's worth it. It's a really fascinating, bustling um, festival with all of these wacky different balloons and people just intermingling right underneath them as they're getting ready to go. And then there's occasionally some not so fun um, aspects. This was at a protest in 2020 in San Diego, and the police unleashed tear gas and rubber bullets on the crowd, but also something very much worth documenting. New York City. So I did manage to find a place. I visited my brother, who's come up a number of times in this presentation, but he was living in New York for several years. And I found a place to park near a public park in Brooklyn and was able to take the train over and walk up and down the streets um, while I was there. New York City is a street photographer's mecca. Um, all of the famous street photographers, American and international, come to New York, and it has such a unique vibe, a unique look, and such a its own personality with street life and movement, where there's so many opportunities to find interesting photographs and interesting light reflecting off of the buildings and being a cultural mecca as well, and just such a variety of people and places to experience. And I do feel when I'm reviewing back these pictures, obviously I have the bias of knowing where I was and when I was when I took them, but I really feel like I can get that essence of some of these different places of how different San Francisco looks than New York does or Chicago. There's always going to be some of these, there's aspects of photography that can be timeless, especially for those of us that occasionally work in black and white. But then there's also going to be ones that are probably going to be very in the era, right? Everybody walking around with cell phones in their hand probably historically is going to be looked at as a certain time period in history. And of course, got to capture the subway when you're in New York, right? And then as for the final bit of photos here, wanted to bring it back home to Kansas. Um, Despite all of the traveling, I've still probably done more photography in Kansas than I have anywhere else. It's my backyard, living up here in Lawrence, and finding interesting ways to photograph. Again, those things are more familiar. It can oftentimes be a lot more challenging because it is so familiar. It's hard to recognize the things that might make, your home area unique. But again, some of those celebrations and you religious ceremonies and can really help bring an opportunity for that. I try to always make it to River Festival in Wichita, Kansas State Fair, um, Fiesta Mexicana in Topeka.
Huh.
Um, you know,
I just find on the lower left of that one, it says keep out of fountain. It's all-
yeah, yeah,
They can't read.
yeah. I was disappointed the last couple of years. I went to the River Festival and the fountain has been off. But it was such a to me such a you know essential part of River Festival, this little fountain area down by the river. And now that I have taken a step back from full-time street photography, I bought a house here up in Lawrence, and I just happen to be about a block away from the county fairgrounds. So when that's on, I can just take a stroll over and spend all the time that I want photographing out there. And it's an interesting um, area because as in a contrast to all of these new places that I go visit and I've never seen before, and I don't speak the language, and these are those places that I know where it's going to be. I've been there so many different years. I know when the light's best. I know where the light hits. And so those are areas where I can sort of practice and refine and see if I can find something new. It's routine, but one that can be a constraint, um, but also one that allows you to sort of like flex your skills because like, okay, if I be here and I'm at this time, at this place, then that's the environment that I can work in. It's and try to make the most of that time. And then the last couple here, this was another just random opportunity. I was in Wichita visiting family, and I went to go get myself a sandwich, and I came out, and there was this parade on Broadway, and it was Our Lady of Guadalupe parade that was going down the street. And I had actually just gotten back from India, and I was still very much in my photography mode. And I had my camera with me, thank goodness, and just walked around the parade and tried to find all um, uh, the shots that I could. And I think that is a good place to stop.
Well, thank you,
And
Kyle.
that's what I've got. Any questions?
Yeah, questions? Here, let me turn on, there should be, wait, more. Who's the
Q and A.
Q and A. Oh, yeah, there it is. So I'll drag this over here. If any of you on Zoom have questions, you can type them into the Q and A box and then,
Newton Public Library is closing in 10 minutes. Thank you.
yeah, there we go.
Thanks.
And that doesn't apply to us. But yeah, Maggie will lock the front door at 8, but then you can just go out onto the patio and exit. So we don't have to end exactly at 8. Yeah, questions, if you're on Zoom, you can type into the Q and A box with questions. I have a lot of questions. I mean, you've gone so many places, done so much. One thing that occurred to me actually with the Taj Mahal, I'm just curious, like that, what was the environment like at the Taj, because it's in this urban area, so what was the environment like there, like how tourists, like I mean, so obviously there's tourists there, were they international tourists, Indian tourists, like what was the mix like for that side?
Yeah, a mix of both. Surprisingly, I would say probably even majority Indian tourists. The group of ladies with all the different colored saris, for example. Um, yeah, going there, it's not in the most populous area, They've tried to preserve that. There's the Taj Mahal, and there's a garden on the opposite side of the river, where a companion structure was intended to be built in like a black marble versus the white marble. Um, it's not the quite the environment that you were asking, but it was something that was really challenging. Was the air quality. The air quality in India has been getting worse and worse, and I was at a especially bad time during that trip. A lot of the farmers in Punjab, it was the time where they were burning their fields, and there was just such immense amounts of smoke in the air that it created a haze through almost the entire time I was there. And that was true in the morning. And I think that photo of the Taj Mahal, I do have that one as my background because I really like it. Um, it was one of those share it. There we go. It was one of those kind of challenging opportunities. Okay, this isn't the clear blue sky or cloudy sky that I want. It's this densely foggy sky. So what can I do to try to to make an image out of something that was maybe not the ideal circumstances? So finding the right area of composition and then um, kind of embracing the gradient that I could find in the light there. Um, the we had to get there really early before sunrise, um, and even then we were hundreds of people back in the line. Um, as you can imagine, Taj Mahal is just a very busy place, but they managed to get a lot of people through um, every single day. Um, and it wasn't too busy. I mean, it was busy, obviously, but it's a big area. Um, but it was, relatively speaking, it was a lot more isolated and calm than, say, in the middle of Delhi.
And we have a question on Facebook. Did you offer compensation, or I guess, did you ever offer compensation to those that posed or cooperated with you to get photos? And did you ever have anyone get angry at you for photographing them?
Yeah, those are questions that I get a lot. In a general sense, my rule is to not have any payment involved with the photography. I feel like um, it can create potentially like a poor what would be the term, precedent for other photographers, um, where it becomes for certain cultures or countries or locations, it can be then a way for people to make money um, as their income, right? Like, and it can potentially ruin the authenticity of what I'm trying to do with street photography and really identifying something that's authentic. Um, People then can become what they think will make them money to be subjects. There were a couple occasions, especially at least on the trip to India, um, where there were some expectations that that was the only way that the photograph could be made as it of the workers in the forts. The woman in pink, sorry, sweeping. Um, that was something that uh, the guides at the fort made sure that they wanted people to be compensated to have their photo taken. Um, People, it all depends. People getting upset is a very, very rare occurrence. And when people do, and they ask me to delete their photo, I'll do that. But again, that's happened maybe 3 times to me ever. Um, Most people don't notice, don't care. Um, and then some people, especially in India, seem to really enjoy it, and will even ask to get their picture taken. even if they don't get the picture themselves, they just want their picture taken. Hey, come, oh, take me, oh, me and my friend over here, take a picture. And they're like, thanks, bye. And like, okay, you'll never see this photo again. So
Mhm.
sometimes it's cultural, it's personal, it's um I want to, as I mentioned before, like I want to be able to express sort of my art and capture authentic moments throughout the world, but I also do want to be respectful of people and their wishes. And there are certain situations where it's a wink and a nod and it's an eye contact and that's it. Sometimes there's just it's something quick and passing by and nothing happens. And um, sometimes there is like a wait a second, you are particularly striking. Could you just hold still and let me take your photo? Would that be okay? That's not something that I do very often. Uh, One time out of 15,000 or so, I think that
Mhm.
happens. So it just kind of all depends on the circumstance.
Yeah. That video you showed us on on the street is so like visually and sensorially rich. I guess that's kind of, is that kind, maybe that's a big part of your like artistic practice is like, how do you, I feel like if I were there and I was trying to take photos, like, oh, I'll get a photo of that. And it's like, no, maybe that, maybe that. It's like, how do you, I mean, how do you figure out when to raise your camera to your, to your eye and what to focus on or what to not when you're out on the street?
Yeah, I think that's one where um, some of that is just kind of a result of practice. I think if India was the first place that I went to do my street photography, I wouldn't have gotten any photos, or any good photos, I imagine. Um, I think it takes some practice to have some experience in that kind of sensorially stimulating areas to get used to the noise and the stimulation. Um, and it's probably the first couple of days you might actually experience it. And that's generally been my experience was the first couple of days were the worst days for photography because I was just distracted and, it's a new place. Maybe I'm jet lagged, right? There's all these things coming at me. Um, Eventually a lot of that gets to become background noise, right? Like the honking. The honking is just like a background noise, and you can just tune that out after a little while. Um, but the first time that you're out there, it's so much. Part of it is getting a little bit closer, right? Not only is there all of these other sensory things, but just when you're posing a photo, there's people and signs and billboards and shops and decorations and um, you have to find areas that are maybe a little bit more simpler or you have enough in your composition where you've got a prominent enough foreground subject that the background is not going to be too distracting. um, but a lot of it, I think, after a while becomes a little bit of an instinct. And if you can get into a little bit of a flow with it really helps. It was really quick, but there was one photo in there where I walked in front of some of the carriages, and there was a couple of folks, a couple of men talking to each other. One kind of looking straight at the camera, but that was a very quick, like I went around the corner, I turned to the side, I had my camera, I took a shot and I moved on. Um, and part of that is just trusting your instincts to a degree. Some of it's luck, obviously. You don't see all of the elements in the photo as you're moving quickly and trying to capture one of those moments. Um, Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
I'm curious about security. I mean, you're walking around, you have a Leica, looks like your primary daily driver, even if you got a gaffer tape over the big red dot, but how do you
Right.
handle security?
Um, Thoughts and prayers, I guess. Um, I, it's definitely a concern. Some places, I think the biggest concern that I ever had was in Rio de Janeiro, where I was meeting up again with locals, and that was the only place that I have been where they've said you cannot be on the streets with your camera. You're going to get it stolen. Um, and I think I was more comfortable during that time period because it was in 2016, just a couple of months before the Olympics, and Rio had stepped up their police presence. And I was really sticking to kind of the town centers, which were, in that sense, a lot more touristy. I think in you do always have to be a little bit alert and always have that conscientiousness about where you're at, who's close behind you, have your head on a swivel to a degree. But I think that also comes with doing this type of photography. You're doing that anyway. You're really wanting to be aware of your surroundings so that you can capture a moment. And I think that really helps. I have um, sometimes thought to myself, oh, do I really want to take this expensive camera with me on this trip? And then I have to say, well, yeah, that's the reason why I have that expensive camera. It's for these moments, right? And um, I have to be willing to take that risk, and then I try to have enough memory cards with me that I can, after one day, I can keep that one safe back at the hotel so that if something does, unfortunately happen to the camera, that I don't lose all of the photos from the entire trip. And when you're with I think it's always a good idea to be with people who are from the area. If you have that opportunity, do that because they'll be able to sense and know the context culturally, body language, whatever happens to be like if you're going into a safe environment or someone says, no, don't go down that street. Um, and that's always good to have around.
Kelly, you got a question?
Yeah, I really like the photo of mustache guy. How did
Yeah.
that look? Was he like take my picture or did you help him pose? Or how did you do that?
Yeah, that one was definitely a posed photo. So that was, I think, part of the photo workshop of a bit more of kind of a planned tour of the area. I have some video too of that man was a textile artist. And so that was one of those parts of that journey where they're also hoping to sell some textiles, some rugs while you're there. Um, and so we were able to kind of get a quick demonstration of them making some of the rugs. Um, and he was willing to pose for us. And he also kind of showed us how to put the turban on, how long it was, and how you put that together. So that was one of the probably two photos that I showed that were posed. The other was that young woman with the striking eyes and the headscarf.
Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very cool. Thank you so much, Kyle, for sharing all this. And I encourage folks to go to your website. Is it Kyle Batson Photography or Kyle Batson Photo? I can't.
KyleBatsonPhoto.com. Yep.
KyleBatsonPhoto.com. Yeah, a lot of these are up there, and it's a very cool website to browse through. And thank you again so much for joining us. And I'd love to have you back again sometime.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
See you in a couple months, buddy.
Yeah.
Yep. Bye.